I think it's just reaching, I mean, LinkedIn has been the biggest source for me. I mean, you and I, we've been communicating through LinkedIn.
Right.
But just messaging people that maybe you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so intimidated, like they would never talk to me.
Right.
Just message them. You never know. There was actually, BuzzFeed has an office here in Minneapolis. And one of the guys who is like, runs that studio, I was like, oh my gosh, it'd be super cool to talk to him, and maybe he'd sponsor one of my events I have.
Yeah.
So I just emailed him or messaged him on LinkedIn and was like, there's no way he's gonna respond to this. And he was like, yeah, let's grab coffee, we can chat. And he's been amazing. And every once in a while we'll connect again, and you never know the connections you're gonna make. And he has a whole crazy story about how he got into that you get to learn about, and it just brings you closer and makes you better.
There are so many things I can't control, but the things that I can. The Dick Polipnick Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Online Growth Systems Show. We have here today a very special guest, Missy Young. She is the Chief Social Media Officer at Hubbard Interactive.
Hey guys, what's up?
So actually, Missy here has actually won a couple of awards around here in the Twin Cities. She's 32 under 32. 32 under 32. And tell me about the other awards that you've won.
So the 32 under 32 one is for the top 32 individuals in marketing in the Minnesota area. And then I also won an award 2 years ago for it's the top interactive seller for its Radio Wayne Award.
Sure,
awesome. Really cool in the country.
So describe interactive seller.
Yeah, so being in that I come from a radio industry and I'm in the marketing side of things, the categories are a little bit different. So interactive seller, I'm more on the strategic marketing side, but the category was interactive seller because I do a lot of selling for new businesses.
Sure, okay, cool. Yeah. So if you're watching this episode and you're wondering if this is one that you should watch, Missy is probably one of the leaders here in the Twin Cities area, if not the Midwest, on social media marketing. She's built a team from being just herself here at Hubbard up to 10 people. She's now leading a team of 10 that works for companies from Think Great, which has been another guest on the podcast, all the way to companies that are Fortune 500s even, right? So she's gonna teach you, number one, how you can implement social media marketing in your business, whether you're on a low budget or you wanna work with a company like Hubbard or Online Growth Systems to kind of build your business, build your online presence. And then we're going to dive into a little bit about Missy's history of how she got to where she is, winning 32 under 32, and being a real influencer here in the community. She's running events, she's doing speaking gigs, she's a huge influence here. So I just want to say welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Let's dive into your background. Let's rewind it. Earliest childhood memory of doing marketing. Were you doing flyers for Girl Scouts? So you tell me.
So it's so funny you bring this up. When I was little, I remember making my mom teach me how to use Word and Excel.
Yeah.
And I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and I would make flyers and just like that, just all of these things. And I'd go play with my friends or my cousins or my sister, and I would always take it to that next level where I'm like, oh, let's play business or school. And I would have printed out projects that I'd do little designs on. You remember word art from that. So I would always add that little extra that did probably need to be there at the age of 9, 10, 11. But I wanted it, and I thought that was so much fun.
That's awesome.
And I remember having my mom actually teach me a little bit of Excel, which definitely don't know that as well as I used to. But it just, that's kind of how I got started and just found my career path from there.
That's cool. So did you do any marketing for clubs in high school or college, or tell us the progression of how you got here?
So in high school, I grew up in a really small town, Goodhue, Minnesota. If anyone's heard of it, it's by Red Wing. Okay. And I graduated with, I think it was 38 people in my graduating class.
How did you know everyone's name? There's no way.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So really tiny town. It was great for, I was super shy growing up. So again, that definitely helped with that, not having so many people around all the time. But we didn't have a lot of marketing and classes that I could get excited about. So I really found love in art. So I spent all my time in the art room. I was the art assistant for a while there, and from there I was I want to go to college for art. That's gonna be my thing.
Yeah.
And then you get to college, you're can I make money off of this? I love doing pottery and drawing, but is this really a career?
Right.
And so I was like, all right, like I love the business side of things too. So like when I went to college, I enrolled at UW River Falls, and I was going for business. And my first day in class, I was in an accounting class, and I was like, I fucking hate this. Like math, I hated it. Oh, it was horrible. And I'm like, this is not for me. Like maybe I need to go back to art. Like this is not what I need. And I remember going to talk to my advisor at River Falls, and she was, just a saint. Like she was perfect timing. And she's like, I noticed that on your accounting notebook in front of me, because I was like, went to her in a panic. Like, I hate this. I don't want to do business. I hate this. And I had like drawn all over it. And she's like, it sounds like you like the business side of things, but you're more on the design. Maybe you should be in marketing. And I was like, marketing? Like, what do you, like, I'd never even thought of that.
Yeah.
So I enrolled in the marketing and communications program with an art minor and fell in love. And I've done that for the past 10 years of my career.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your first job out of college that you kind of established yourself?
So I was definitely an overachiever in college. I probably had like 4 or 5 different internships.
Nice.
And so from those internships, I discovered a love for social media. And I was doing a little bit of dabbling with that, creating specific flyers and websites and stuff and social media. And so my first job out of college, I got as a social media strategist for a boutique agency called Del Monte in Minnetonka. And there I did, I had a plumbing company as a client.
Nice.
I had the BBB as a client. And so I did a few things with them. And then I also had Marriott, which was my most favorite account, doing just small graphics. And it was so funny because thinking back on social media, this was probably 9 years ago. You didn't do Facebook advertising. You didn't have to. We were doing these like comment contests and stuff
cool.
that. So just a totally different world back then. And
so your favorite client might have been the hotel. I think mine would have been a plumber, because I could have got real creative real fast about like, maybe you can ship. No, give us a call.
Yes, I'm sure they would have loved that. But yeah, it was a fun gig, and it brought me to I was there for about 9 months, and wanted to kind of mix things up, go to a little bit of a bigger organization, and found Hubbard Broadcasting.
So obviously, if you were the number one hire, like the first hire at Hubbard, were they like kind of conceptualizing the idea, or they were like, we're starting this social media agency, we need to find a hustler to like get in here and like lead the charge? Like, where were they at when they brought you in?
Yeah, great question. So with coming to Hubbard, they knew that there was a need. They had a lot of their radio clients. So a little bit about Hubbard, for people who don't know, Hubbard Broadcasting is located here in this office in St. Paul, their headquarters, but we have offices all over the country. And their bread and butter, they've been around since 1923, is radio and TV. And so they have markets in, we have offices in Chicago, DC, Cincinnati, Phoenix. We just purchased a bunch in Florida a couple weeks ago. And so with that, they had so many of their radio and TV clients asking how, we're doing this big radio campaign, and I'm driving traffic to my website. Can you help us with our Facebook page? Or maybe we want to do this cool campaign on this. We're driving traffic from radio. Could you help us implement more of that? And at the time, I think Hubbard was probably like, no, that's not our thing.
Right.
But with the more and more need for it, we were like, yeah, they were, savvy enough to know, like, we need to integrate this into everything we're doing. And so that started the digital team. And it started with, let's start with social media and grow from there. So when I first started, they had 3 accounts for social media that I had taken over. One was a restaurant, one was a B2B printing company, and one was a dentist.
Right.
And so from there, and over the past, it'll be 7 years in April I've been here, we now have, probably 50 plus clients.
That's awesome.
And clients like Think Great, Eric Thurwanger. I'm drinking out of my Hazelden mug because Hazelden's one of our clients. So Old Dutch Foods is a client of ours. So big and small, we help cater to now.
That's awesome. Okay, so working for Hubbard, which is an umbrella company that you said it owns TV corporations, radio, and then they spun off and branched off the social media piece to do the digital needs.
Yes.
I think that's really important to notice, and I think we should talk about that a bit. Because there's industries that are like dying right now, like the taxi industry, because Uber and Lyft have disrupted that. And there's even back in the day, railroads started to shut down because highways and interstates were invented, and semi-trucks were much more affordable and they were faster, and you could be more specific about where you wanted them to go. So I think that's really important to notice that Hubbard actually was conscious of there's a need here, number one, for our clients. There's room for disruption, and we're the ones that might get disrupted. So we might as well
Absolutely.
do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So that way we can still be relevant 5, 10, 100 years from now.
Mhm.
So I want to get your opinion on that. Do you think radio and TV are on their way out?
Mhm.
Do you think that social media is already on its way out, and things like podcasting and Alexa skills are taking over? I want to get your thoughts on kind of where the industry's at.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So a big thing with that is what Hubbard's great about, and why I've been here for 7 years,
Yeah.
is they are constantly innovating. So they realize, like, I would say, like, our backbone is we're a communication company.
Mhm.
So whether that communication is coming from TV, from radio, from digital, from podcasting, we are amazing at telling stories, whether that is through any type of, whether that's voice or visual or design. We do a ton of that as well.
Mhm.
And so that's always going to be our backbone. We just need to maneuver what channels it's going to come from.
Right.
So we also, Hubbard recently purchased, not recently, it's probably been about a year now, Hubbard Podcast One, which is based out of LA.
Mhm.
And so we have a huge podcast initiative that we do as well.
Mhm.
And then we also have 3 radio stations here in this market. We have KS95, My Talk 107, and 1500 ESPN.
Mhm.
We recently, about 2 weeks ago, we flipped 1500 ESPN to Score North, and is now not really the radio side of things. It's completely a podcasting initiative.
Oh wow! You guys have completely made
We
the 180.
completely flipped,
Yeah.
and I wasn't part of that initiative. That was another part of the team.
Mhm.
But it has been amazing to see, like, they realize that the world is changing and they're switching it as they need to, which is really cool.
And I think that's really important to know, because I've read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people recently. We've even had a couple of book reviews on the show
Yeah.
of what's the industry you're actually in, who are your actual customers, and what's the problem you're solving.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not in the radio business.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're in the storytelling business.
Mhm.
And storytelling might change from old printing press newspapers to radio to TV to social media to podcasting, right?
Mhm.
So you're the job that you're trying to accomplish. I don't know if you've ever heard of jobs theory, but we've done a couple of videos on that.
No, I haven't. That sounds
It's
interesting
super interesting. It's like, what is the job to be done, and then how can I best solve that job? Because it's from the perspective of, like, the consumer is hiring services or companies to almost like for a position, a job, right?
Mhm.
If you're like a social media agency, they're saying, hey, we don't have the full-time budget or the expertise to hire on 3 people or a full-time person for our social media team. We're just a small dentistry, but we have enough budget to hire an agency to kind of fill that void for us,
Mhm.
right? So they're hiring you to fill the job of doing their storytelling and getting people in the door, right? So
Love
it's customer attraction
Yeah,
and
that customer
attention.
journey and
Exactly. So where do you think is it going next? Do you think I want to hear your futurism predictions
Yes.
here.
Oh, this is so funny because I have a podcast called The Social Feed, and I always, my last question I always ask is, where do you see your industry going 5 years from now?
Sure.
But I've never been wanted to ask that question myself.
Like, oh God, no.
Because
Yeah.
it's so intimidating, because you have no clue. And what's interesting about it is it's so dependent on, with my job, the social networks.
Mhm.
Like Facebook, Zuckerberg could be like, I'm just not feeling it. I'm going to sell this to someone else, and they could completely change it on you.
Right.
So you're really at the mercy of these channels where, with having a radio station or a newspaper or whatever else, you can control it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest thing is, to kind of answer your question out of both sides of my mouth, one is to be adaptable. So whatever comes, we can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, gosh, to see where it's going.
Like, if I had to record like a 10-second clip here where you look
Like
dead
a
into the
crystal
eyes
ball.
of the camera, and then 5 years from now I'll play it,
Yeah.
and it'll either be super wrong or super right. Which one do you want to? And either way, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So I want you to, like, with 100% confidence.
Like, what do
Yep,
you think?
Yeah.
I think, like, in the social media world, I think we're going to see a lot more with, and this is a small segment of it, but specifically with influencers.
Mhm.
I think we're going to see a lot of that, more of like the micro influencers, which we're starting to see already a little bit.
Mhm.
But you have these like huge influencers like the Kim K's of the world, and that have like 1 million plus fans,
Mhm.
and talking, and just personally with users and talking with businesses, it's so expensive to use that.
Mhm.
And so going back to like those smaller influencers that really affect little niches of their community. I think more niche marketing is going to pop up more than just blanket marketing. And I think that's starting to happen now, but I think we'll see more of that. Not sure how that'll look, but that's kind of what I'm expecting for in the future.
Awesome.
Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, totally. I like
a
that.
little vague, so I can like spin it if I need to later.
Sure. Well, here, I'm going to have you spin it right now.
Yeah.
We're going to actually pretend that we'll use one of the examples we were talking about already as a dentist.
Yeah.
I'm a dentist.
Yeah.
How can I utilize micro-influencers to grow my business?
Yeah, so I would definitely say, and dentist is perfect actually because social media, Instagram smiles, you gotta have it. So I would definitely say finding those influencers that live in the neighborhoods that your dentist is located. So if you're a one-stop shop, making sure that they're specific to that area, not someone who is just one huge influencer in the market.
Right.
Because people...
Because their followers in Europe aren't going to matter.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you want to make sure, and a big thing too is to always look at engagement rates for the influencers. Because I think a lot of people get blindsided by is they're like, wow, this person has 10,000 followers. But it's like, well, yeah, but their posts get, 30 or 50 likes on them.
So that's sub-bots or something.
Exactly. You have no clue, or their audience just doesn't care what they're posting about maybe.
Right.
So I think really looking at that is important and making sure that the people who follow them are in that geographic area that you're trying to target as well. So I definitely would say those more niche influencers are going to be really beneficial for that. So following hashtags like maybe let's say you're in Inver Grove. So seeing that what's going on around that area, seeing that there's an influencer that lives in that area and spends time in that area and knows that space is really going to help lift your brand. It's going to be a lot more work for marketers to find those people because Instagram isn't this, you can search certain things, but it's not like I can just pull the profiles when they list them. So I think that's going to be something to have to really dig into more in the future.
Sure. So you keep mentioning Instagram. Is that your favorite social media?
I personally love Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where I spend the most of my time.
Okay. Personally or on the business side, that's where you do the most marketing?
Personally, I spend the most of my time on Instagram.
Okay. Which platform do you spend the most marketing time on?
Facebook.
Okay. All the old people.
Facebook is by far, I would say for businesses, the most effective marketing platform from what I've seen for direct ROI, specifically because of the advertising capabilities. And as you know, Facebook owns Instagram, so any ads you place on Facebook, you can also do on Instagram. But I've noticed that there's a lot more traction when it comes to the ads when you can look in your analytics and see placed on Facebook. I'm sure that will shift. That's something maybe in the future that it'll shift more towards Instagram. Snapchat, not seen a ton of ROI from. And I think YouTube is something to be, YouTube's always been big, but I think over the next few years, that's something to really be watching as well.
Sure. So what do you recommend for companies who are seeing a lot of competition for their niche? Let's say that especially like Google kind of things, it's like very bid based, right? So you're trying to do an ad on YouTube and there's just like people left and right that are going after the same exact client as you. Is there a more guerrilla marketing tactic that they can utilize on social media?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would go back to potentially, influencers. Could be a great way because that's someone just endorsing you versus just running an ad. And I also would say a big thing that you want to make sure you have right is you could have the most perfect targeting, like I'm hitting you and I'm in your neighborhood and but if the ad sucks, people aren't going to react to it. And that's a big thing that people think about. They get so focused on like, wow, I can target people who are in like a 1 mile radius of my business that are, this age range and like to go to these places nearby. It's like, who cares? Like if the creative sucks, they're not going to interact with it. So really, that's something I think people don't think about enough is the creative side. So if you have a good personality and you can, want to be part of that ad, if you're the owner of the business, I love that. If you aren't going to be good on camera or being featured in the ads, don't put that stress on yourself. Find someone in your organization that can do that.
Okay, I like that. So let's dive back. Let's go back to the topic of your 32 under 32.
Yeah.
So what were the kind of checklist of like the perfect person they were looking for that helped you get on that list? And how did you get those?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. So how the 32 under 32 works, it's part of the Advertising Federation of Minnesota, and each year they award 32 people in the Twin Cities who are under the age of 32 who are like up and comers in the advertising industry. And so someone has to nominate you, and I think I'm trying to remember who nominated me. I think I had a couple people that might have done it. And then they have a panel of judges who are, just big advertising people in the industry that vote based on the nomination, and they also probably do a ton of creeping on, I'm assuming, LinkedIn and things like that. And then they vote, and I'm not quite sure the qualifications that they follow for that, but I was lucky enough to be awarded, and I was so excited about that.
Well, congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
So if you had to guess what was one thing that you did that probably helped you get that nomination and then helped you actually pass the nomination and be awarded, what do you think it was? Was it posting on LinkedIn? Was it having your podcast? Was it just the interaction with your clients? What do you think?
I think it was a mixture of a few different things. And again, this is me just interpreting, but especially because I have a team of 10 now that I lead for social media, when I'm looking at resumes and people that I want to hire, I really look at the people who are doing multiple things and not just one thing. So, it's I obviously work at my position here, leading the team, but then, I also have a social feed podcast on the side that I talk with business owners about their social media needs and how they built their brands through Instagram or Facebook or whatever it may be. I also love to volunteer, so I volunteer at the Crisis Nursery Center here in the Twin Cities, and I help with their art program because I'm an art kid at heart, always will be. Yeah. And I'm on the board for AdFed, which is great. I help put on one of their biggest shows of the year.
So you were able to slip some $100 bills?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Yeah. No, different sections, but that probably did help a little bit.
Sure.
But so I helped put on one of their biggest shows of the year called The Show, and it's a huge, kind of think of it like the Grammys.
Is it the greatest show?
The greatest show.
The greatest show. Is Hugh Jackman, does he show up?
we will try to get him this year.
Oh, nice, okay.
But he, it's a great event, and we usually have about 1,200 people from the advertising industry come, and we award the best in show. So whoever did the best advertising that year, and then those people move on to regionals and then nationals.
Oh, very cool.
And it's a really fun event to put on, so we get to get really creative with that.
Awesome. So let's dive into advice that you have for listeners. We have listeners from solo entrepreneurs to freelancers, all the way up to people who are executives of Fortune 500 companies. So if you could kind of give one piece of advice to the hustler, the freelancer, what would you give those people?
I would say the biggest thing that's personally benefited me is networking. So just meeting people that know more than you and feeding off of that and truly taking advice to the heart, because I think people have a hard time getting critiqued. Yeah. And you can't get better unless someone tells you that how to make it better. So I think just, being open to meeting with people and grabbing that extra coffee, even though you're like, oh, it's been a long day. Do I want to, go do happy hour right now? Just do it, because that's going to get you that next level. And I always try to hire people on my team that are smarter than me and know things I don't know. And I've learned so much from, I'm like a proud mom because I'm like the old lady on the team. But it's just so cool to see and pick, because there's just things that no one can know because everyone has a different story on how they got to where they are. Right. And so I think just taking that extra time to meet with people who maybe they're not even in your industry. Maybe they do something completely different. You might find out something you didn't even know that you can add to your forte of things. Okay, very cool. So what is one piece of advice you can give to the Fortune 500 executive who says, we really suck at marketing? What do you recommend as first steps they take? Gosh, I would say find a partner that can do it, and that you trust. There's a ton of amazing agencies. That's what I love about the Twin Cities is we have a plethora of ad agencies out there, and they all have their niches and things that they specialize in. So I think find a partner that can really help you and kind of go from there. And I think the biggest thing that's going to win when you're looking at those partners is who's going to come up with, yes, you want to make sure they can do the appropriate targeting, but those creative ideas, because it's all going to go back to what's that messaging that's going to captivate that audience.
So what? Just to kind of give you a plug for your business. So what is the thing that Hubbard is like super good at? Like the kind of niche. Like if you're this kind of listener, yeah. What's if like there's a listener right now that has a business that's in X category?
I mean, I'm totally biased because I lead the social media team, but because we do everything from building websites and we have an amazing videography team as well. But yeah, I'm gonna obviously plug the social team. For what we do because it's been my baby.
I mean, like niche industry, like
industry.
Client.
Oh,
like,
gotcha.
What kind of client is like you're really good at working with those kind of people?
Oh gosh, we have so many different industries that we work in, and what's really cool too is there are agencies out there that specialize in, let's say, automotive.
Yep.
And we will never be that way because I think that you get so into one thing that you start to notice when you go on all the pages for those specific agencies that all the content looks the same.
Yeah.
And how are you going to make yourself stand out? So
because they're running all their competitions
exactly
as well, right?
And so it's like, yeah, we work with like a food brand and we also work with a bunch of nonprofits and we work with automotive, and there's things from the food brand clients, like I might go on like a food styling shoot and I'm like, that could be kind of a cool weird concept, something that we did there for our car dealership. Yeah. Or hey, we're working with this nonprofit, let's partner them with our car dealership and do this cool campaign idea. So we will never do just fully one industry. I'll say one of my favorites is the food, just because, I mean, come on.
Right, yeah. You get to sample it when you're on the photo shoot. Yeah.
So I would say that we do have a lot of food clients and nonprofits that we have really just helped. And the nonprofits, again, are just really near and dear to our hearts at Hubbard. Hubbard has a really great, we do a lot of giving back. We have the Hubbard Foundation. And so we love to obviously help all those nonprofits as well.
Awesome. What is the biggest shitstorm you've ever dealt with?
Oh shit. Oh gosh. What? Can I say it on camera? Just probably, like, you probably have dealt with this too. Have you ever like met with a client and you put together like this amazing idea and they're like, yep, let's do it, and the client, you're just like, what did we get ourselves into? You know, it's just maybe, it's like maybe like you go on a first date and you're like, and then they turn like, you're like, how did we get to here?
Yeah. You didn't put that on your profile.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, it's just you discover things about, you know, it's not all relationships are, you know, I'm trying to be politically correct.
It's okay.
You know, not all relationships are good relationships.
Right.
And sometimes you meet with the client and you're like, yeah, this is kind of like the route we're gonna go, and then it turns into like they wanted something totally different than what you were thinking of, and you're like, okay, like we obviously want to make sure that you get what you want, but you know that's not really what we do or specialize in. So we're gonna maybe say, you know, this probably isn't the best relationship.
Okay, so how far into it did you realize, holy crap, this is going south fast?
Probably about like a week or two.
Okay, well at least it was early.
Yes.
At least it was early. I've had some situations where you work with a client for a year.
Okay.
And you're like, yeah, like here's the reason. Well, we're constantly doing communication piece, so it's like, how did you not know? This is what we're. Here's the documentation you signed on. You know, like I totally feel what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what do you think you could have done differently to either turn that situation around into a positive thing, or go into it just in a better situation?
Oh gosh, that's like $1 million question, because.
Did you lose $1 million with it?
No, not that much. But yeah, it's so hard to know, because when you're building that relationship with someone, and for it to be a year, it's like you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
And that's I think one thing that we've started to do more of is to just making sure that we meet face to face more frequently. I think over like email communication can get misinterpreted a lot.
Right.
And so,
which is fascinating, because we're in the digital. That's our trade, is online things.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, we do the digital things for you, but for our marketing, we like to sit down, have a conversation face to face, which is like totally ironic, I think, but I think you're right on the mark. You're totally right.
I agree. There just needs to be, and maybe that's something that just a lot of places, like, they just lack. They don't do that face to face communication anymore. And there's so much that to be said about like just meeting face to face and talking with someone, and there's things you pick up. Like, I might ask you a question and you might answer me, but your mannerisms might be a little bit different than what I think.
Right.
So there's just body language that you can't tell, and I think that's a big part that's missing. So I think having more meetings leading up to something in person, so you can make sure that you're picking up the right vibes from that client as well. I'm big on like vibes, which sounds super like hippy dippy, but there's there's this like aura and these things that you can't tell just by an email.
Right.
And can get misinterpreted too.
Right. And I think if you're listening and you're like, well, I can't do that. I'm in the Bahamas
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, exactly.
I'm a laptop lifestyler. Here's a solution. Zoom is a great tool to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah.
It's not as good as in person, but it's much better than a cold email where you can't hear like tonality. I think I've read several books, like Wolf of Wall Street even talks about. He said his biggest skill set in selling someone is tonality, because I think it was like 10% of communication are the words you're saying, and I think it was like 40% of communication is the tonality, and the remainder is your body language.
I totally agree with that.
So if you're on the phone, you can have the words you're saying and the tonality. If it's an email, it's just the words you're saying.
Yeah.
If it's a Zoom call, it's all three: the words you're saying, the tonality, and the body language a little bit, because you can see that.
Exactly.
If you're in person, though, you can pick up on those things much easier. But I think video chat is a good solution for that problem.
Yes, and we do that a lot too. We'll do like, Zoom is perfect for all of that.
Sure. So what is one gold nugget that you've kind of found throughout your career, like, oh, this is kind of like I don't want to use the word social media hack, but something along those lines?
Oh gosh, I would say just partnering with having people surrounded with, like, having people around you that know more than you. That's probably my biggest hack, and that's not even really a hack.
No, yeah.
Because you can read all these things online, and I love that you like have read all these books, because I'm reading like all of these like marketing books right now. One of them is called The Art of Negotiation.
Oh, sure.
And how to it's by these like FBI guys that actually when they negotiate hostage.
Chris Voss, I think.
Yes, they negotiate hostage situations, and it's how you can negotiate, salaries, and when you're meeting with clients and things like that. And I think that the biggest thing is just meeting with people and having people around you and kind of like your core group that can help build you up. That's not really a hack, though.
No, I get it. Look, let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit. So
Yeah.
you think surrounding yourself with people that are better than you, smarter than you, will in turn drag you up to their level, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you get around more of those people?
I think it's just LinkedIn has been the biggest source for me. I mean, you and I, we communicate through LinkedIn.
Right.
But just messaging people that maybe you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so intimidated, like they would never talk to me.
Right.
Just message them. You never know. There was actually, BuzzFeed has an office here in Minneapolis. And one of the guys who is runs that studio, I was like, oh my gosh, it'd be super cool to talk to him, and maybe he'd sponsor one of my events I have.
Yeah.
So I just emailed him or messaged him on LinkedIn and was like, there's no way he's gonna respond to this. And he was like, yeah, let's grab coffee, we can chat. And he's been amazing. And every once in a while we'll connect again, and you never know the connections you're gonna make. And he has a whole crazy story about how he got into that you get to learn about, and it just brings you closer and makes you better.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what is one question that I should have asked you during this conversation, but I haven't?
These are such good questions. Usually I'm asking questions on the podcast, so I'm being in the other seat, I'm like, this is so weird. I'm like, oh, now I have to think of all the answers. Gosh, probably, I would say maybe how, you kind of already asked me about how I got to the place I am now, but I think the biggest thing, here's a good one, how to manage a young team.
Yes, let's go for it.
Let's talk about that, because I can do the marketing side, I can learn from other people, what I don't know, but being a leader, and I'm so happy to hear that you've had Eric Thurringer on your podcast from the past, from Think Great. I've been through his leadership seminars and I've read his books, and he's like an inspiration to me.
Totally. Because
it's so hard it's one thing to do, but it's another thing to lead. And leading a young team who has a different style structure than other people that I've worked with in the past is refreshing and amazing, but difficult at times too, because it's a whole new generation that you are, trying to nurture and grow and make sure everyone's happy. And that's a really big challenge. And I feel like a lot of industries moving forward in the future are going to have that same challenge as well.
Okay, so I feel like you kind of talked about the problem.
Yeah.
What's the solution? Yeah.
The biggest thing is going back to communication.
Sure. And
I think over communication is the number one thing.
What kind of communication?
Just talking about if there's an issue or something happens, or why did you do something that way, or asking them, like, instead of thinking, oh, like, we should do a team outing here, like, asking them, do you want to do a team outing there? Like, is that even something you're interested in? Because people kind of have, like, what's the word? Like, traditions, where it's like, well, we always do this. It's like, but do we need to keep doing that? Like, is that even helping anything?
Right.
And to make sure that it has the same vibe as the culture that you're breathing in your group. So one thing we started here at Hubbard, something called the Hive. Yeah, we jokingly have it. It stands for Hubbard Interactive Viral Entertainment. Super cheesy. But we have a couple people on the team, and they're in charge each month of putting together a cool thing that we do with the Hive. So every once in a while, we have, actually next Friday, we're going to volunteer at this organization that essentially for kids who haven't had a birthday before, you throw them a birthday party because maybe their parents can't afford to do it.
Okay, I was like, I haven't had a birthday.
Yeah, like a birthday party.
Yeah.
So we are gonna like put together this whole birthday. You bring decorations, the kids come in, they have cake and stuff. So we're gonna do that, and then also doing like other things like potlucks and just kind of cool outings with the team. A bunch of us did the. Have you been to that axe throwing?
Oh, I was just there like 2 weeks ago.
Were you? Yeah. So the team did that one day. So just kind of making sure that we're keeping the team bonding going, but also doing things that we actually want to do.
Awesome. That's really cool. So for a split second, I was like, children who haven't had a birthday.
I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, that probably sounds, I'm explaining that so wrong.
So my theory was, okay, they're confronting children that were born in a leap year, that are under the age of 3, or in biological years. They're like, hey, we know that you only have a birthday every 4 years. We're gonna
really celebrate this.
The next one, this is gonna be it.
I explained that so wrong, but yes, I'll have to look up the organization and send it to you because it's really cool, and the Hive is putting it on.
And of course, all the information that Missy's talked about today will be in the show notes on onlinegrowthsystems.com/show notes. You can see links to Missy's social media. You can go ahead and follow her there. What's one platform or medium that they should be following you on?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. So make sure you follow you or connect with you.
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Connect with Missy.
Yes.
So
I'll
all
accept
those links. And what's one last kind of ask that you want from the audience today?
Oh gosh. Just like in general with life or with
with you. Like what's one ask? Like make sure
I was like trying to get some like wise wisdom.
Yeah. Read this book, watch this movie, look up this person, follow me on this platform, something like that.
Yeah, I would say follow me on Instagram. Follow me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of my business stuff, but if you wanna, I'm like secretly like love snowboarding. Not secretly, but on my personal stuff, I post a lot about snowboarding. Sure. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm Miss Shred Betty, and I follow a ton of like inspirational accounts that I get from more of the creative side of my brain. Or LinkedIn is more my business side. So depending on what side you want to go to, and then also I run the accounts for Hubbard Interactive. So shameless plug. I'm gonna follow them on Instagram, obviously as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, Missy. It was an absolute blast.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I come from a town where most of the people are so close-minded. They go into school and they work in a job, but they don't even like it. I won't be put in a box. Nobody telling me what I should rock. Nobody telling me what I should drop. Cause I do what I want and just know I don't stop. Recording till 4 in the morning, they snoring. I'm pouring my soul into every story. I'm writing, producing, I mix it, I master. I'm building my craft and I'm not looking back. I've been going doing things I want to do when I want to.